I was gonna,
Okay, we are recording.
okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And Judd, boy, he thinks first. Okay, on the agenda today, we have my welcome. And I'm glad to see everybody, and I hope you had a great September. In Richmond, we didn't have a drop of rain. It was like summertime, but anyway. Then our main speaker will be Amanda Mendez, who's with the DRC, which will be handling hand controls and telling us about hand controls. And then at 2:50, we have Judd Vaughn speaking about the website. And then at 3 o'clock, we take our break. And then for all new people, for about 10 minutes, we'll do the new attendees. And then we'll have open discussion, which we'll talk about later. And then our president, Pat, we'll have some closing remarks. And then we'll go into overtime. And anyway, right now I'm going to pass it on to Mike Foxworth, who will introduce Amanda. Welcome, Amanda.
Okay, get out a full screen. Our speaker today is Amanda Mendez. She's a certified driver rehabilitation specialist. We'll explain what that is a little bit later. And with a training and background as an occupational therapist, and turns out that's a pretty important aspect of all this. She's the manager of the office, the Chantilly office of Driving Rehabilitation Center of Excellence. DRCE was founded by a retired major, Tammy Phipps, in 2008. She was working at the Walter Reed Medical Center, helping wounded service members. She found that one of the most important things these soldiers wanted was to be able to drive again. And for many of them, that was a really difficult thing to do. But there was no policy to provide official help for that. Money, yes, but intensive guidance and technical assistance, no. Tammy changed that. She had to work over the bureaucracy of bureaucracies are what they are. There were, of course, private firms providing some of these services, but she found that none of them took an integrated approach that covered all aspects of what can be a very complicated process, especially when the physical or perceptual challenges are very severe. And you have to recognize that there are important public safety issues in driving these 2-ton chunks of metal around our roads. So this is not just a private personal issue, it's also a governmental issue, as you would have picked up when you learned to drive and getting a license. When Tammy retired, she started DRCE to be an integrated source of all the services needed. Amanda's here to help us understand what's needed and the process involved. The process, it turns out, is really important. So in the interest of telling you what we're going to tell you, I'm going to go through, I'm going to list some of the questions I think you should be alert to. The obvious ones are what is hand controls, or there's a more general term that Amanda will use, because not all of them, they're yes, hands are typically what we use, but there are all kinds of controls and adaptations that you make to cars. How do they work? What do they look like? How do they work? What's involved in modifying a car to have them? How much does it cost to install them? And what's involved in getting certified to use them? I don't know why I've got a cough here. Can any car be modified, or are there cars that should not be modified? Should one think about getting a new or a different vehicle if you're thinking about trying to learn, get a hand control? Can other people drive the car once it's modified? These are kind of the obvious questions, but the ones I think you'll probably spend a little bit more time on is what should you look for in deciding whether you suspect, you think maybe you ought to have hand controls? What are the symptoms that you want to look for? With me, I got to the point where the quickness with which I could move my foot from the accelerator to the brake seemed to be slowing down a little bit. And that's when I decided to go look for hand controls. Can you get ahead of this game? Can you get hand controls before driving becomes an issue? Or do you have to wait until you had a crash or something is really bad? And do you have to wait till it's bad, or can you move quickly right ahead to get what you need? Can you anticipate? Are you going to be thrown into a mad scramble to make lots of difficult questions, answer lots of questions in a short time? What is the testing process for evaluating this and getting a diagnosis? You need a diagnosis you need some kind of assessment in order to get this. What's involved in doing that? Is the person who does the assessment legally required to share a bad assessment with a state licensing agent? Turns out that different states have different rules. Can you lose your license to drive immediately, even before you had a chance to get a modified vehicle? That's an important question. We're going to spend some time on that. Anyway, those are some of the questions that I'd like, that we expect Amanda to address, among others. And so without further talking by me, Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you also to everyone that's here today and listening, and thank you for having me. I put my contact information in the chat at the very beginning, but I can copy it and put it at the later end as well of the presentation. So really my hopes are that you leave armed with information, to make the best decision for you. And I'm always available to reach by phone or by email if you have any questions too. I'm going to speak a little more specifically to the state of Virginia today, but just know and understand that there may be different laws for the governing bodies in each individual state, and to familiarize yourself with those. And if not, then seek out someone who does know those, such as a CDRS or Certified Driver Rehabilitation Specialist. So I'm going to go through of how to even locate a CDRS in your state too. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'm very, just kind of jump in if you have any questions, you can put in the chat, or I told Mike, feel free to interject as needed. Okay. A little bit of background about me. Mike, I wanted to correct you. I'm an occupational therapy practitioner, not necessarily an occupational therapist, but I'm an occupational therapy assistant. I've been in the business for about 10 years, and then driving specifically for about 3. It just makes a lot of sense to me. And it's honestly one of the most rewarding settings I've been in so far. I did physical medicine and rehab in skilled nursing facilities, in acute inpatient rehabs, even in home health settings. And by far, I think there's a lot of limitations to those settings, and driving is very, it's kind of where we can really come into our own as an occupational therapist and view someone holistically. And driving, just as well as I relate it to walking, like the minute you lose those 2 pieces of independence, that's a huge impact on your sense of self and identity and routine, right? There's so many things impacted if you ultimately lose one of those abilities. So it's really nice that I can help in some capacity there to maintain independence. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, we kind of ran through this earlier. And I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to do this one. Bear with me. Okay.
Good.
You guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Whoop. I'm trying to just get this thing to move. There we go. Nope.
Slideshow.
How do I?
Can you go to slideshow?
I'm trying to do that, but it's up at the top here, or this
Yes.
block. Oh, here, this one. Okay, thank you. There's all the Zoom controls are now blocking me. I have all
Yeah.
these fancy controls now. I don't know what to do with them. Okay, and as Mike said, so I work at Driver Rehabilitation Center of Excellence. So that's the name of Tammy's our CEO and president. So she kind of got us all together under one roof, but ultimately with the goal of streamlining this process for someone from A to Z. So you'll kind of see a little further on, we do the clinical portions here as well as installation and modifications to vehicles all under one roof. So that is a very, we're the only facility like that we know of in the US. So otherwise you will see a CDRS independently in a clinic, and then the people who modify the dealerships in a separate capacity. So I just wanted to point out there are several different diseases and conditions that could impact the ability to operate a vehicle safely. So I know we're here at the peripheral neuropathy support group, but just looking at a few others that you guys may experience or be, aware of or privy to, and even maybe a loved one as well. These are all different conditions that, someone should maybe consider looking into getting a driving evaluation if someone's being really impacted by any of these conditions. I don't want to have to go through all these, but any sensory changes, a stroke is a big one, any cognitive diagnosis or impairment, any progressive disease, memory loss, and then also to any traumatic that is impacting your function, any traumatic injury. So we'll talk specifically about peripheral neuropathy today. Let me move this down. Okay. So as you all may know some of these facts already, again, I don't want to read through too much of this. Here's some quick facts. About 2.4% of people globally have a form of peripheral neuropathy. And then among people 45 and older, that percentage rises to between 5 and 7%. And really the timeline or the progressive nature really depends on what causes the neuropathy to begin with. So it's really important that you are aware of some of the symptoms and then the warning signs, and really just get the help or the diagnosis, see a provider as soon as you are experiencing any of these. And yourself best, your loved ones who live with you, see you regularly, are able to really, they're more aware of some of these symptoms, and it would help to just talk about it as soon as you can. The sooner the better. Some motor symptoms you may see or experience are muscle weakness or atrophy, and uncontrolled muscle movement sometimes. Some sensory symptoms to look out for: tingling or numbness, and pain or lack of sensation. And then looking at autonomic symptoms, so that's your blood pressure may have fluctuations, be really high, then really low. You may experience bowel and bladder or sexual dysfunction. So these are all, symptoms that can go along with peripheral neuropathy that may not even, say or scream in your head, oh, this is because of peripheral neuropathy. You could be attributing it to something else. So just knowing and being aware that you may see some of these symptoms are very important. And then comes, along with those decreased sensory symptoms, you may also increase in falls or tripping, and then experience loss of balance as well. So I'm going to go ahead and play. Mike made this video for us to kind of tell a little bit about his adaptations, and then we'll go into a little bit about what I do and then specific warning signs as it relates to driving. Can you guys see this video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I full screen.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh-oh.
Oh dear.
Restart your computer.
Well, we can't do that. Maybe I can just.
Maybe I can share that
Yes,
screen.
Mike, maybe you could.
Okay, hold on.
Yep. Or if I just reload it here. Let's see.
That's looking better.
You just leave it there instead of make it full screen. Nope, doesn't want to do that. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, do you have it queued up?
No,
If not, I can find it.
but I can get it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would say if you want to, or I can continue as you look for that, and then you can let me know when you get it, Mike.
Okay.
Good idea.
I went back. Okay, so here's specific warning signs to look out for as it relates to driving. So
I'm
again, we
ready to
talked
go
about.
whenever you're ready.
Okay, here I'll go into maybe after the delay in coordination, and then you can play yours. We talked about those sensory or decrease in sensation or proprioceptive feedback or awareness. That's if you're pressing against something, but you can't tell that you don't feel that sensation, or you don't feel it as much. So like if you're pressing here, you can't feel that you're pressing until you get to a certain pressure, or you don't feel it at all. So some indicators that you may be experiencing something like that: driving too slow or too fast consistently, having recent car accidents or near misses, jerky braking or acceleration. And then the incoordination, you're going to see a delay maybe, or the decrease in reaction time impacting your coordination. You're going to see a delay when you're moving your foot from the acceleration to the brake. And this is what Mike said he, started experiencing when he found out about his neuropathy. He didn't realize that was happening. So Mike, if you want to, you can play your video now.
Okay.
Now, I think you're gonna need to stop sharing,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
but Michael, take over.
Okay. Or can I pause?
Just stop sharing.
Okay.
It has a very simple mechanism. It's a control to control, in this case, both the brake and the accelerator. It is conceptually a very simple mechanism. So when you pull it, so you push this thing, and it will push through a mechanical mechanism. It'll push the brake pedal. Very simple. And for me, what was interesting about it was it's pretty much the same natural motion. That is, I want to stop, and after 50 years of driving, or however long it's been, you want to push something to stop. It turns out that by loosening a little knob here, I can also make it run the accelerator. Right now it's locked out, so it won't do that. But it's also very conceptually. It's just got an inner piece that if it was active right now, I could pull it and it would run the accelerator. Now, for me, that's not as natural a motion as pushing stop, pulling to accelerate. And I've done it. I've done it in the process of getting all the paperwork and all the approvals done. I have driven it, and I didn't find it very difficult, but it's just not as natural a motion for me. But it's mechanically, it's pretty simple. And I also got what's called a spinner knob. This allows me to drive the car with my right hand, steer the car with my right hand while controlling the brake and potentially the accelerator with my left hand. That's all. This is the kind of setup that a typical driver who hasn't lost a leg or doesn't have some major damage, isn't paralyzed. This is the kind of simple arrangement somebody with peripheral neuropathy, who's typically has the biggest problem is his ability to move his legs quickly. That was my problem. That's kind of typical people who have standard peripheral neuropathy. And so this is probably the kind of arrangement that if you have peripheral neuropathy, this is probably the first kind of driving arrangement you would probably get. It's pretty simple. I'm not saying that the actual mechanics of installing it are all that simple. I wouldn't want to try to do it with my Tinker Toys, but there are much more complicated forms than this for all kinds of disabilities. But it's conceptually easy to understand.
The nice thing about it, as far as when my wife wants to drive the car, she simply pushes a button and gets rid of this, what she calls this annoying knob. The this knob used to be a fairly popular thing back in the 50s and 60s. Men would put it over on this side and hold their girlfriend with the other arm, but that's not the use I make of it. Anyway, that's the story on my car.
Let me go back just a little bit.
Mike, this is real hard to hear.
Let me go back just a little bit. What you can't see in the video is there's the hand control here, and you can't quite make it out, but there's a little thing here that drops down from the turn signal so that I can use my fingers to change to control the turn signal without taking my hand off of the handbrake. Just a little wrinkle to all this. This is the kind of thing that when we went to DRCE, they suggested I get, and it's turned out to be very helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Let me try this again. Okay, we're back on the presentation.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and I think going back to Mike's initial kind of introduction with some of the questions too, I think the most important thing is to, you know, if you're experiencing any symptoms, if you have any signs of anything, first of all, go see a provider, right? Get a diagnosis potentially. But if you do have just a safety concern, if you're wondering, you know, maybe I'm not as comfortable on the highway anymore, maybe I'm not as I can't feel the brake as much, you know, just anything, go see a provider, but also seek out a driving rehab specialist, because that is our job, is to consider every component of driving. And then also what your job is as a driver. Do you have to pick up the grandkids? Do you have to tote them around? Are you picking up medications or groceries? And it needs to be a functional drive. That's our job, is to think about all the different components necessary. So I want to say, first and foremost, seek out a certified driver rehabilitation specialist, or we say CDRS because it's a mouthful. So I have here, I wanted to go through this to show you how to locate a CDRS within your state. This is our governing body. It's the Association for Driver Rehabilitation Specialists. It is ADED, and yes, I know it does not match up the acronym to the words, but most importantly, I don't want to just say, okay, you guys go find a CDRS, and then you're like, well, how the heck do I do that? So I wanted to take you at least here, so aded.net, and then we can copy and paste these links as well in the chat, or however you guys decide you want to do it. But you go here to find a provider, and you go to member search, and then you'll want to scroll down certified driver rehabilitation specialist here. So that is like the highest tier within our governing body. We have done the most continuing education courses. We have the most current and evidence-based research as to how to treat any medical diagnosis as it relates to driving. So I would click on that badge there and search. And so I will just do Virginia in the US for now. But like I said, you can go and do this for any other state there. So I'll go down to Virginia. And then for the type of program, there are many different types of driver rehab programs. Here at our facility, we have the capacity to do all of them. It goes from basic all the way up to what's called high tech, where you're operating a vehicle with a joystick, like a 4-way joystick. Those are people maybe in power wheelchairs, maybe a high level spinal cord injury, muscular dystrophies, some congenital diagnoses. So we do it all, but you could just press basic and press continue. And this shows all the providers in the state of Virginia. This is Tammy here, and this is myself here. So we're both at Driver Rehab Center of Excellence, as well as Miss Trista. So that is one way to locate a CDRS. An additional way would be to go here to just plain old Google. So if I type in, I really cannot figure out how to remove this bar up top. If I were to just go to google.com and type in CDRS Virginia DMV, if we know how to type. Okay, there we go. CDRS.
Virginia. You need to put in Virginia.
Yeah, I don't know what happened here. Virginia. See, I told you. I have these funky nails on, you guys, and it not that and typing did not go together apparently. Okay, so when I just do CDRS Virginia DMV, this is what comes up, and it takes you, so each Department of Motor Vehicles in each state has a list of providers, so of CDRS providers within the state. So here's us, and then we have a couple of other locations here as well. So those are just different ways to be able to find or locate a CDRS within your state. So hopefully that is helpful. And like I said, so I'm going to go into a little bit about what we do here at our company. We have the CDRS credentials for the majority of our therapists. If not, they're working on it. But more importantly, I want to highlight the occupational therapy component, because as occupational therapists, we're trained with a medical background and knowledge of each diagnosis, as well as to view someone.
Sorry.
What was that?
Sorry.
Okay. Did someone have a question or no?
No, it was just an accident.
Oh, okay. As well as viewing someone, holistically. So sometimes if you go to, if you purchase something on Amazon, on a piece of equipment, or if you go to a mobility equipment dealer that sells like wheelchair accessible vehicles, they're not looking at how do you perform functionally? What are your exact needs? So we're looking at every bit of the process when it comes to driving, just like Mike showed you the hand control. There are so many different versions of hand controls, but we recommended that one specifically for him because of his needs. He had what's called a drop down for your turn signal, because maybe he didn't feel, for whatever reason, the therapist recommended that for him, versus some other people can just go up to the turn signal and hit it and not need that piece of equipment. But that's our job, is to look at every part of the process and make sure that it's conducive for your needs, that it allows you that independence. What is the point of setting your car up with all this equipment if you're not going to be independent? And we have some people that flat out choose to not be independent. I have someone that loads my wheelchair into my car all the time. Okay, then that's if that's your choice and that's what you want to do, then that's fine. But then we have people who, they don't want that. They want to be completely independent. And so that's our job, is to make, see how we can make that happen. And I know I highlighted on the installation piece. So we also have technicians who are the highest tier of certification when it comes to working with that, all the medical equipment and installing it into the vehicle. So they have the highest form of training. They do a once over, a twice over of how to correctly install this equipment so that it's crash tested, it's safe. Okay, if you go to purchase a piece of equipment off of Amazon, yes, you may have it installed by the best handyman, but is it crash tested? Are they trained to do that specific equipment, to install that specific equipment? So we pride ourselves on these highest, these credentials in the industry. It speaks a lot to what we do here and what we're trying to accomplish. And also too, I wanted to point out, you have this level of certification and this treatment that you're getting. So if something were to happen too, in an accident, maybe, or, anything like that, God forbid, the insurance companies can choose to pay for whatever they want. At least if you went and got it done at a place that is certified and considered the highest standard in the industry, that speaks to it, volumes when it comes to a situation like that. So it's something to consider. So our goals, right, are to, when someone comes to us, we want to get a good baseline. So I think that's very important, sooner rather than later. If you're experiencing anything, come to us, because it doesn't hurt. We have a baseline. We have something to go off of. If something does progress later on, or like I said, God forbid you get pulled over or an accident, you have something to justify why you're still safe enough to drive the way you are. So we'll do a lot of standardized assessments here in our clinic. And I can kind of show you guys too. I'm in my clinic right now. But we have, can you guys see me or no?
Oh, no, you need to stop sharing.
Oh, okay. So I'll kind of glance around then after I'm done chatting. So I'm sitting here in our clinic currently. Oh. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Oh,
No,
no?
if you could just stop sharing, then we could see you.
Okay. I see myself in this little picture. So it
Yeah.
confused me. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. I do know how to maybe use Zoom. Okay, so we'll use a lot of standardized assessments, and that's picked based off of the therapist's discretion. We know what can be impacted by each medical diagnosis. So we're picking out these assessments to objectively measure what could be also happening with this person and how it could potentially impact driving. So we're going to look at reaction time. We do a basic vision screen. We do other assessments that look at more visual components, visual perception, a lot of other different, but ultimately we're not the optometrist or the ophthalmologist. If we see anything going on a little, more involved with vision, we would end up referring you out to someone who could better treat that. But that is part of, it's within our scope, because the DMV does have minimum vision requirements that someone has to meet to drive. So we just want to make sure someone's meeting those. And then, as we're going through the clinical assessment, and then we'll look at the behind the wheel piece. So we'll go out in one of our fleet of vehicles, and these vehicles that we have about 10 now across all sites. So it's a really good, we have a lot of different equipment options available for someone to trial. So that's really beneficial. If you go to a lot of providers, CDRS providers, they're independent, like a one-man show. And they only have, they have a very limited amount of equipment. So we have a lot. We have a huge equipment closet, I like to say. And so it's possible for people to trial a lot of different pieces of equipment before making, the final decision. So we'll look at all of those components together, and then develop a plan of care. So during this plan of care, we're looking at primary and secondary controls, which we say are gas, brake, and steering, are primary. Secondary controls are some, items like your turn signals, the windshield wipers, the horn, the lights. We're also looking at ingress, egress, which means how can someone enter the vehicle and exit the vehicle? Can they do it independently? And then DME stowage. So if you have a walker, a rollator, a scooter, a wheelchair, how can you independently get this piece of equipment in and out of the vehicle and have it be safe too? Someone can load a wheelchair into the trunk and it could be super sketchy, super unsafe. And we've seen that, and we'll say, well, here's an alternative solution that is significantly safer. Let's explore this option. And really our job is to provide this education, provide this information and resources. And ultimately it's up to you, the consumer, to make that decision as to what's right for you. But at least go to someone who arms you with that knowledge and information. Okay. So just talking about what you need for our evaluation, we do say it is a medical evaluation. We want a following physician to sign off. This is a one-page referral form that we have on our website, but really it could be an order for, a driving safety evaluation by your doctor, or they can complete this form. But we want someone signing off, just saying that, hey, I see this person regularly. This person is able to medically stable to participate and get behind the wheel with you. So that's really what we're looking for. We don't need your full medical history, although we'll chat about that. But this
question.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you need to get a doctor to go talk to you, can I just walk into your facility and just talk to you? Or do I have to get a doctor to talk to me or fill out some kind of form in order to talk to you about this? Can I just come to your site?
Yes, you could. Yep, a phone or just a phone call. I do lots of screens or like a consultation over the phone. Yeah, we could do something like that and we can better guide you to see if it's warranted. And then we'll accept if you're receiving any other forms of therapy too, we may ask for that documentation. Or if you've recently seen an eye doctor and you have a diagnosis that impacts your vision, we would probably want to see that paperwork as well. And then we would want you to have a valid or current driver's license and or permit. If we plan on participating in the behind the wheel piece at least. And this goes into a little more depth about what to expect at your first visit. I know I told you guys we'll do the comprehensive driving evaluation. So I didn't say it takes about, we spend 2 to 3 hours with someone because we're doing that in clinical in-house piece. And then we're going out and doing a standardized route in our vehicles behind the wheel. So combined, those 2 assessments, and then also the discussion at the end about our recommendations and kind of like the plan of care. It ends up being about 3 hours. So that all happens at the one visit. It's about $800 for our comprehensive eval. And I will say insurance, the medical insurance typically does not cover the evaluations. We can provide billing codes if somebody wants to submit to their insurance company and see if they will reimburse, as it is an OT evaluation. But most insurance companies don't deem driving medically necessary, more a privilege. So we have often seen that it is not covered by medical insurance. If we're looking at the auto adaptive equipment, you'll see that noted in a minute here. I have it as AAE sometimes, but that's the hand controls, that's solutions to get in and out of the vehicle or to stow your equipment. I have seen that the Medicaid, they have a disability waiver. There's an assistive technology component that may cover the cost. So I've been seeing more reimbursements for that piece, but not necessarily the driving evaluation itself. So we'll go over the evaluations, plan of care, and then we'll provide you with that evaluation and also send it to your referring doctor. Some of the assessments results could include resume driving just as is, or, we see people all across the driving spectrum. So I typically treat clients who have autism spectrum disorder and ADHD, and I actually help them get licensed. That's more of my population that I work with. Of note, also, I have 3 little ones at home, so maybe I like working with the kiddos. Another assessment result could be drive with limitations. So we may recommend a night restriction for someone or no highway driving. So those are options, because sometimes we see, someone gets a diagnosis and then more often than not, medical providers are quick to recommend no driving at all. But we say, come see us. You could still be driving. Maybe you just need limitations and you could still be independent. We try not to go straight to retire from driving, which is another result here at the end. And then, sorry?
No, continue.
Okay. And so driver training may be an option or a potential result, and or need for auto adaptive equipment. And we here so the therapists that do conducting evaluations, they can also write what's called a auto adaptive equipment prescription. And so that is what the mobility equipment dealer would need to install the equipment in your vehicle. Either the prescription, or if you go through what's called the medical review process in your state to get that placed as a restriction on your license. So to go get this hand control installed, you would need one of those 2 things. Maybe someone's not appropriate for driver rehab services. Maybe someone needs to go see the ophthalmologist and then return once the vision is cleared. So that's a potential option too. And then, like I said, retire from driving. So we would have that conversation with the client and loved ones, and also provide resources though. We don't just say no and kick you out. Here's a good picture of our clinic. So like I said, I'm sitting in here now. This board right here, can you all see my mouse hovering over?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, this is something, it's called the Dynavision. So it's a form of, or well, it can be utilized in for many different purposes. We specifically utilize it to measure reaction time here. This is a screening tool that we use for vision. This is a tool we use to measure grip strength potentially. Here, this is a standardized assessment looking at vision. This is a robotic hand or orthotic. We don't use that as much. I think it's just fancy and they wanted to put in the picture. But we have a shelf full of a bunch of standardized assessments and other tools. And then of course, our vehicles will be a tool. So I'm going to go over some commonly asked questions and just provide those answers quickly. And hopefully that will answer any questions you all have. We already answered, does medical insurance cover? Will the driving evaluation report be sent to the DMV? Will the license be taken away? So this is a very important question. If you go to some clinics, it's their policy. They mandatory, like at the end of each evaluation, send the report to the DMV. That is not our policy here. As OT practitioners, though, we do have our own code of ethics that we follow to, and uphold to keep our license. And if there's a safety concern, we will send the report to the DMV, but we do not always send the report. So, and if we are going to send it, you would be notified before that happens. But no, our goal here is to keep people on the road as long as possible. So we do not always send the report. How long does it take, the evaluation? If you come get a CDRS evaluation, it takes about 3 hours. People ask sometimes, can I drive to the appointment? Our recommendation is usually no, because, we don't know what the outcomes are going to be. And if it turns out that we recommend don't drive, then we do not want someone to drive back home. People often ask, can I drive my own car? I would say as part of our recommendations here, we like to utilize our own fleet of vehicles because our vehicles are equipped with passenger safety brakes. So we're more in control when we're out on the road with someone. We are taking into consideration, it may not be the car that you typically drive or may not be the area that you typically drive in. So those things are all going into consideration. And as OT practitioners and CDRSs, we are trained to differentiate what may be just a nervous or anxious behavior that's presenting today, because it may not be your own car or area you drive in, versus what's actually impacting my driving because of my medical diagnosis. So we're trained to differentiate those two. So we say, hey, we're taking all this into consideration. We understand, we know this. It's not going to impact the results. Can someone else drive my car if it's modified? And Mike probably, I think, answered this in the video. Yes, you can. In most cases, I would say most cases, if we go into the high tech, it might be a no, but it just depends on the equipment that's in the vehicle. But it's our job to educate, whoever else is going to be driving, or, if that's an option or not for that person. Okay. So Virginia DMV. As I went back to also, we don't always send the evaluation to the DMV. It's our choice. We make that choice because also Virginia is called a self-report state versus mandatory. So some states are self-report, some are mandatory. Maryland is a mandatory report state. Virginia is self-report. So even still, we're joining there, and we have very different laws. So self-report means if you have a medical condition that impacts your ability to drive, you do not have to report it to the DMV. Mandatory states, such as Maryland, you have to report that condition to the DMV. The medical providers are trained to report someone to the DMV if they have a condition that impacts their driving. Otherwise, they're at risk for suspension. So Virginia is a very gray state. There are so many recommendations, but it's not a hard, concrete, this is the law. So what we do is recommend that someone goes through what's called this medical review process. So this is from the DMV website for Virginia. We usually recommend, so as you can see to the left there's all these policies for these different conditions, but there's not a hard line of you have to or you must report this, otherwise you're going to be suspended. Okay. Now, so anyone can report you, with that being said, in Virginia, anyone can anonymously report you. If you get pulled over for going under the speed limit, or you have a fender bender, and the cop looks at you and, you know, God forbid, I would like to think we're all good humans and don't get stereotyped or put into categories, but we do. So I've had people get reported just because they were elderly, you know, and there was nothing going on that impacted their driving, and they were completely safe when they saw us, and we recommended continue driving as is. But unfortunately, it happens. So anyone can report you. That's the medical providers, the law enforcement, concerned family member. So, you know, once someone reports you to the DMV and says, hey, I'm concerned about this person's driving, they put you what's called under this medical review process. And here are just a few examples as, you know, what the DMV could ask of you to do if you're put under this process. So oftentimes with the auto adaptive equipment recommendation on our end, we recommend that someone goes through this process just because, you know, you're here, you took the time to come do the evaluation, you took the time to do training. Also, I didn't put the training cost is $200 an hour typically, and the equipment costs are also separate. And then basic forms of the hand controls are about $2,000 to $3,000. And we're going to go look over a couple of those as well. But so we recommend that someone goes through that process so that way they can get the restriction put on their license, and they don't have to come back and pay maybe for another prescription or another exam. Another evaluation. So like I said, you either need that prescription or that restriction on your license to get that hand control installed. So say you're getting a new vehicle and you want to put that equipment in a new vehicle. Well, you would have to have that restriction on your license or a prescription. So it's just something to consider. But then also the DMV may ask you to do a few other of these steps. So it's our job to inform you about the process so that you can make the right decision. Some people choose to not go through the process once they get the equipment installed, and then we see them a couple of years later, or we don't ever see them again, you know. But it could happen to where you may have to come back and see us if you don't go through the process. But again, you make the decision. And I think I'm like running a little bit behind. I'm trying to speed it up there. Here's a basic form of a hand control. So this one's about, I think, $2,500, and each hand control, it really depends on the compatibility of the vehicle. I would say most equipment, most basic forms of hand control are compatible with most vehicles, but I would always seek us out first and just say, hey, if I'm getting this new car, I want to get this equipment put in there. Is this compatible? Just so we can cross-check that information for you. But I would say the majority of equipment are. Really what we're looking at when we get into the compatibility are more of the secondary options. So like I said, the turn signals, the horns, the wipers, stuff like that. Let me go. Oh, sorry. This hand control, they're all forward for brake. So just like Mike said, and that's the natural instinct, forward, brake. So this is a rod going down to the brake. You push this whole control forward and it brakes. Now this one is a little lever. You would just twist it down and that's the acceleration. So again, we're looking at all these different options for someone and their functional capability, what they can do, and then making the appropriate recommendations. This, you can gas and brake at the same time. So it may not make sense to some people and it makes sense to others. Me personally, I would never pick this one. It doesn't make sense in my brain. This is a wheelchair accessible vehicle over here. So sometimes this may be a consideration for clients. We maintenance this, but we don't actually do the conversions. You would have to go to, this is a Braunability or a conversion manufacturer. I know VMI is another one. But sometimes it's time to consider a wheelchair accessible vehicle. But again, we are assessing all those things on the evaluation. Here's another form of hand control. This whole unit goes forward for brake. Here's the brake rod. And then this one would just pull back a little slightly like this for acceleration or gas. And then there are floor mounted hand controls like this one, and then column mounted ones like Mike's that you saw on his vehicle. There are pros and cons to both of those, but we're weighing those out during the assessment. Maybe legroom is a concern, or maybe, you know, someone is a shorter spouse and they have to move the seat far forward. Then you don't want this hand control to be engaged, the brake to be engaged if this seat moves too far forward. But that's our job, is to look at all those different things. The spinner knob here, Mike had just a spinner knob. This is a single post spinner knob. So it's just to facilitate turning the wheel if your other hand is operating gas and brake somewhere else. This is another secondary option. So instead of the standard spinner knob or that single post here, we could do what's called a remote secondary. So there would be left turn signals here, right turn signals here, windshield wiper, horn, wash, maybe even cruise control, all on here, if it's appropriate, if someone can educate, and be trained on that equipment. This is a 6-way power seat, so it goes all the way back and turns to the right. These are typically in wheelchair accessible vehicles. So someone's driving that wheelchair up to the ramp, transferring over to the seat, then it turns back and moves forward to the driver position. This is another form of hand control. This is on the higher end of a hand control. This is about 12 grand.
Ooh.
This is called an acceleration ring. And then this right here on the left is a hand brake. So I had just trained someone on this piece of equipment, and again, some people, here's the options. Here's a basic one for about 3 grand. Here's this high end one for about 12. It's up to you. What do you like? What's your financial situation? Present all the options and someone gets to select. And this is the higher end, high-tech equipment. Someone drives in their power wheelchair into this driving position. And then this is forward and back for gas and brake. And this is a wheel, but with a tri-pin. So this must be someone that has very limited use of their upper extremities and none of their lower extremities.
Can we go back to that picture just a second?
Sure.
When we talked earlier, you described that this person had a
Yes.
particular problem in his life that he wanted to solve, involving that smaller non-driver there.
Yes, and I liked how you guys pointed out earlier, neither one of their legs will reach the floor for that brake, or gas pedal. So yes, we had to come up with a very customized solution for this gentleman. His goal was, of course, to drive independently, but also to get his little girl in and out of her car seat. He had to go pick her up from her daycare every day. So we actually took him out on functional drives. We made sure that he was able to put that car seat into the vehicle with his setup. And I think he just ended up kind of bumping on his bottom to the front seat to the mid row, but he made it work for him, and we made sure that we left him with a setup that was going to work for him. Again, it's all part of our process.
Amanda,
Yes.
this is Bill Porter. What I was wondering if it's 2:55, I would like to take a 5-minute break, and then you answer if you can stay around for questions, because I don't want
Okay.
to break it up in questions. I'd rather have you do it all at one time. Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so what I'd like everyone to do, it's 2:55. We're going to meet again at 3:00 for our Q&A with Amanda. So far, it's been wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
See you in 5.
I'm going to run to the restroom then.
Good. Good time to do that.
Where's
Will you pause the recording?
Pause the recording. I don't usually do that.
Okay.
Yeah, can we just let it roll?
I can just edit it out. Don't worry about it.
I'm just saying our private conversations, we don't really want it in the recording necessarily.
I always just edit that out.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Gotcha.
All yours, Bill.
Okay, folks, we're back here at 3 o'clock, and remember, it's only for a Q&A. Amanda, it's been a fantastic. I know you probably have 30 minutes more to talk about, but just we can go to the Q&A, and remember, for Q&A, you can raise your hand or put something in the chat, and we will call on you, and please make your questions as general as possible. Not, I have a broken toe and can you fix that? But just say general question. And I'm going to start and say one. And Amanda, I'm just curious on at your company, do you do the adaptive features at your company, or do you send it out to be done?
Yep, we do them here.
Okay. Now, does every office have the same type of setup you do? Or are you the Cadillac version and so on?
Yeah, no, we're the only one like this that we know of in the US. Otherwise, you'd go see someone for the driving evaluation and then work with them and get the prescription for the equipment, and then have to go to a mobility equipment dealer to get them installed.
What about the office in Richmond or?
No, so we are the only site that has the modifications piece for our company is this one in Chantilly.
Are you intending to add labs to other places?
We are. The next location would probably be our Ohio. We have a location in Ohio as well. But yes, that's the goal. We're still a small business. We were only opened in 2016. But yep, that's the goal, is to get more shops like this, the install piece, combining with the evaluation piece.
The difficulty is finding the technicians. Is that a big problem, finding the technicians who have these skills?
That's part of what we invest in our technicians when we hire, is that training process, getting them to that level. So I don't know if it's probably, just making sure the juice is going to be worth the squeeze for us as a business. I think it's a lot to maintain, and different credentials and different, regulations you have to follow to have that shop. Different codes, building codes, stuff like that.
All right, Mike, you have one more question. Have you finished? Anyone else have a question for Amanda?
Melinda
I
has
saw,
in the
All
chat.
right.
yeah, I
Go
saw
ahead, Pat.
that. I saw that. And do you know what? I'm genuinely not sure. So I don't want to answer one way versus another. And I actually had just messaged a few of my coworkers who don't want to work on a Saturday. because I have not heard a response back, but I will certainly get back to you with an answer with that. I know of community organizations that help people with disabilities, and I've even heard of churches assisting with funding, but I'm not sure about the health savings or flexible savings accounts. I'm not sure, and I don't know if that will qualify or fall into a group that they could justify as reimbursable. I don't know.
Wouldn't,
But I will get back to you guys.
but you said that it would be considered equipment for purposes of like a wheelchair would be considered a health savings account expenditure, I would think. So why not driving? I think you could certainly make a good case for it.
Yeah.
Melinda,
Yeah.
does that answer your question? Yeah. Realistically, we're not talking, I mean, the average cost of a new car is like $40,000 or something. And when you're talking about an additional 3,000 to 8,000, 3,000 to even 12,000, that's not a big increment over what you're going to pay to buy a car.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Mike, that's it from you. No more from you, Mike.
Mm.
Any other questions from anybody?
I did not answer all of them. You guys.
Amanda, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm only now beginning to feel tingling and numbness in my hands, and it's definitely related to grip. And at the end of the day, and even sometimes early in the day, I do not feel individual digits. It's like a feeling of complete numbness, and I can't even type. Is that something that as far as I know, my acceleration brake coordination is fine. I do have numbness in my feet, but I definitely still know the difference between the accelerator and the pedal. So I didn't think I was really a candidate, but I'm beginning to get worried about my hands. What do you suggest? Is it worth coming in for an evaluation, or?
That one's a little trickier, I think, because of because you're using both hands to steer,
Yeah.
So if you're not losing grip of the wheel as you're doing, I would say the best test is going to be a U-turn.
Okay.
For that one. Because you're really, and then parking too, because you're turning it a lot one way and turning it the other, and then also looking at your reaction time. Are you able to react as quickly? Are you like missing the steering wheel because you don't have the sensation, or, kind of looking at those things. But also too, I would, because you have both going on, the lower extremities and the hands affected too.
Yeah.
So I'd say yourself, right, the best if you're noticing any little mishaps like that, or just any, tingling, your spider senses are going off. Say, oh, that wasn't the safest motion, or I didn't get to that as quickly as I thought. I would say seek it out. It doesn't hurt. We can tell you, no, come back and if you ever experience anything again, or it may be maybe you need to come annually.
But would I come in and have the $800 evaluation, or do you just have a sit down and go through these sort of symptoms first? I don't quite understand.
I would say it would be an evaluation.
Okay.
Yeah. Just so we can see it all as a whole picture. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I'm not ready for hand controls, but I see, there could be a day that would come, and I'm very interested in this program. What I was impressed with, and Amanda, as we talked earlier, was you talked about we've had people on who will come into your home and install equipment to help you move around and prevent falling and so forth. And you could do that with a vehicle. I mean, it's just an install, like Mike's little knob on the steering wheel. You know, that's not a new technology. It was around the 50s, but and then you know, there are other shops. But what I was really impressed with was your occupational therapy background, where you were really, it was a custom fit for my disability. And I know you do a lot of probably physical disability type work, but I can see where that would be really important to, you know, focus on the individual instead of just here's our A, B, and C, choose one. I can get that kind of attention, right? That's what the
Yes.
evaluation is for.
And I think, yeah, I mentioned, so some CDRSs in the industry don't even have a medical background. In our organization, the ADED is really pushing to kind of to eliminate those even being an option at entering the field and having our credentials, because there's a lot of things that go go missed. Someone's not right. Like I talked to you about that gentleman with the child. We were looking at what's his occupation with driving. And some people don't have that knowledge or that approach, whereas occupational therapists, that's what we learn in school. So yeah, that holistic approach. And then also just being armed with that medical knowledge beforehand, whereas a PE teacher from a high school who decided to get the credential may not be armed with that medical knowledge that could come, into play. I heard of one of our providers in the industry. We got a referral from that provider because they did not do a good, we get calls all the time. It's unfortunate about, I went and got this driving evaluation here at this place and they didn't even know what I was experiencing. I was having, have you ever heard of autonomic dysreflexia? It's where your your vitals go basically your body starts shutting down because you have to have a bowel and bladder program if you're a spinal cord injury client and you can't feel below the below your chest. And so this person was going into like a shock, and the provider didn't even know because he doesn't even know about the diagnosis and what the comorbidities and what kind of symptoms can present. So that was just one little example of what we see.
Well, I have a follow-up if I could do that. My worst fear is that I would go in, make an inquiry, in just the thing of asking the question means I've self-diagnosed myself as a bad driver, and then that gets reported to DMV, and then my license is taken away when there may be no cause. And can you help me with that? Because we've talked about it, and there's some other states like Pennsylvania. Our group up there had some situations like that where it actually was the person's license was taken away mandatorily. They just received a letter from DMV saying surrender your license. That's a, that scares me to death.
Yeah, that's a stigma that, kind of exists in this industry. And it's unfortunate because really our goal is to keep people on the road as long as possible, So I say just come sooner rather than later, get a baseline, and know that we at least are not going to send that evaluation in unless we've conducted that comprehensive eval with you and spent that time and really saw that there's a safety concern.
Yeah. On the other hand, I don't want to be a dangerous driver. I guess I have to depend on others to say, hey, Judd, it's time for the car keys, But I mean, you're not required to, in Virginia, you're not required to report. I guess
Right.
you are in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if there's a concern. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
sorry. when we first come to you, when we come to you, eventually we'll probably come to you. It's mainly for a baseline, for you to establish a baseline, correct?
Yes, but at that initial evaluation, any of those assessment results could be an option, a conclusion. That was in my slide, so we could say maybe you need to try hand controls already,
Okay. Right.
or maybe you're good to continue. Maybe we'll consider hand controls in the future.
So during the 3 hours, you can go from baseline to more of a
Plan of care.
evaluation.
We'll develop a plan of care for you.
Okay, now to get an appointment with you, are you 3 months booked out, or how does that work?
No, we're not. We're about 2 to 3 weeks booked out.
And if we want you because we think you're special, can we request you, or is everybody an occupational therapist?
Yes, I have very competent providers.
Okay, so you have a good team.
I
Okay.
will say hi.
All
I
right.
don't always do the assessments, but
All right, that's great. Okay, we have time for maybe 2 more questions for you. Anyone with a question?
Pat was going like that. I don't know if
I was,
Pat, again, it's your last one, Pat.
I was just thinking that it's a comment on the Pennsylvania situation. It may be that was a mandatory state and that's why they were turned in. I think the person's complaint, as I remember it, was that they didn't warn them ahead of time that this could happen. And so they went ahead and had the assessment done, were assessed to be not safe, and were reported to the Pennsylvania DMV. And so that was the situation, I think, there, just to give clarity. And I guess it's better in some ways that Virginia is self-reporting, but also maybe it's better in a mandatory state where they really shouldn't be on the road.
yeah, it's definitely more regulated. And I know as a clinician, I'm in between. I think Virginia is behind. It should almost be, just to stay ahead of things, because I see people after an accident, after something, prompts them to come, and I'd rather see them before. I just say, but we do, yeah, if we send it, we at least say, this is what could happen. You are going to get a letter in the mail from the DMV. They may ask you to do this, this, or this. And honestly, some providers don't. It's just that communication piece. It's like they do the evaluation and just send them on their way and not educate them about what's to come or the process. So we really thrive, I think, on being transparent and honest and upfront about this. This is not, the DMV it's like a black storm cloud, I mean, nobody wants to deal with the DMV or what it entails. It's always so difficult to understand what exactly you need when you go, and what forms need to be completed, and etc. So, that's our job, is to know what to expect, what's to come, if we make whatever move with them. And we actually have a provider line that we call too, so we can get a hold of someone real quickly. I know that that's a common complaint with the DMV, just for the general public. But we have actually a provider line that we call, so we can get someone on the phone and get answers quickly too. So oftentimes we'll see people, send them on their way, and still be working with them, and in communication with the DMV and assisting them through the process until it's complete. So
Bill, can I?
This is it, Mike. It better be a good one.
Okay, this isn't really a question so much as an observation. What got me, I was leaving a parking lot and there was a slight slope. We drive semi-automatically all the time. Slight slope, just a slight slope, going down this slight slope. And I needed to move my foot from my accelerator to the brake. And I noticed it just seemed a little bit slower than I planned. I mean, I'm driving, we all drive, we don't think through every emotion we take. We take actions And I started to move my foot, and it just seemed like to me it was just a tiny bit slower. And it was enough slower that it kind of startled me a little bit. I was able to get to the brake and stop, no problem. Well, a few months later, I went through the process and got hand controls. I was driving fine, didn't have any problem driving, except this little thing in my head that said, this is not quite as what it used to be. And then I got the hand controls, used them for quite a while, a year and a half. I don't know what the exact timing was. And the car had a problem, and I'd take the car into the shop, and it's going to be there for several days. And we got a rental car, and my wife drove the rental car home, and I don't know whether yeah, okay. And then we got in the rental car, and I thought I probably can drive. And I got about a block away, and I said, my legs, the strength in my legs had changed enough in that year or year and a half that I no longer felt safe driving. I felt safe driving when I got my hand controls, but I didn't a year and a half later. My point being that if you get ahead of the game, you get this changes so that you're driving safely, even before you absolutely need it. It's going to be there when you do need it. And that's the reason I'm urging everybody to be proactive, be as proactive as possible. In most cases, it's not going to be that much money. Yes, your license will be changed so that you have to have hand controls to drive. So if you need to get a rental car, you're going to have to either not drive until you can get your regular car back, or you have to have your spouse or somebody else drive you, or you take Uber or something. But try to be as proactive as you possibly can.
All right, good point, Mike, and I appreciate it. And Amanda, you are a gem that, Mike, I appreciate you finding Amanda. And Amanda, we're going to have to move on, but I appreciate you being here, and I'm sure you're going to get some calls.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for having me. I did put into the chat that because I had messaged once Melinda had asked the question about the health savings and the flexible savings account. I messaged Tammy, our CEO. She's probably the only one willing to work. She works 24/7, that lady. So, which is another reason we are, behind her movement so much. We're all fully invested. But she said, yes, that we have had people utilize an HSA or FSA. So it's really a matter of contacting the program and then getting the confirmation to see if they'll reimburse. But we've had people do it in the past.
Super. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a nice
All
weekend.
right, you guys. I know. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
And I'm always here. I can copy and paste my contact information back into the chat below. So,
That'd be great. Thank
all
you.
right, you guys.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
All right, Judd, you're up.
Oh, okay.
Are you
Well,
ready? Get off hand
yeah.
controls.
yeah, we'll see how long it takes. Every meeting we try to feature the website because we want to get people used to looking at the website. And so let me turn on the website here. And by the way, we had a little glitch before, but that wouldn't allow you to turn on your camera if you came in late. That's been fixed, so you can turn on your camera now if you want it, where you wouldn't have been able to before.
While
Okay.
Judd is searching, I'd just like to interject that Amanda's presentation will be posted on the webpage, our webpage, pnsnnetwork.org, if you want to go back and check out the links or review some aspect of it. So, sorry, Judd, go ahead.
Great. Yeah, 1 second, my page didn't load here. Okay, this is our website. That's how you'll know it. It has a group of people on there. We're the Peripheral Neuropathy Support Network, PNSN. And this is the homepage. It lets you get around. And we have a search engine right here. And I think the search engine works pretty well. Mostly any word that's in the site can be brought up. If you have a strange term that you don't know about, then you can try to search or find, let's say, the calendar or anything else you're looking for. We publish Catch As Catch Can newsletter called Footnotes. And Footnotes is a collection of things that we think it'd be fun for you to read about. I just posted something yesterday on this event today, but here we go, driver hand controls. And this basically just, you've already heard all the information that's in this article, but we're trying to keep you posted on things that we think are interesting for you to know. We also try to highlight other groups and their meetings and webinars. This one happens to be on cannabis from the Calgary group. There's an article in the New York Times, thanks Glenn, on red light therapy. That's a very popular treatment. And you can go there and read that article. It just basically links to the New York Times newsletter. I'll come back to that. Let's see. Then there are other issues on a variety of subjects. Now this one, I just posted this today. We just finished our year, and we posted a copy of the annual report that we generate. It's about our group, and maybe that doesn't sound like fascinating reading to you, but we like it, and it'll tell you a little bit about the group and some of the leadership and what we're trying to do with that. But anyway, there's the newsletter. If you're new to neuropathy, you can click here and go to our resource section, which basically has helps on why, what is neuropathy, how the diagnosis for it, types, treatments, and so on. There's just a whole bunch of stuff here, and it's pretty educational. Now, what we want you to do, depending on how you got here today, you may have gotten an invitation that really you won't get next time unless you're a member. Please join. It's free. It's easy, and it's easy to on and off. If you find it's not for you, fine. You just don't subscribe. But here we go to join PNSN. Basically, you're getting on our mailing list, and our mailing list will invite you to these meetings. And sometimes we have other activities that we're talking about. For example, lobbying for funding from Department of Defense funding, for example, when we did that. Basically, this is the reason you need to join. And let me just carry you through here. This is our little form. It's pretty quick to fill out, and then you can go from there and just become a part of our group. Like I said, you'll get notifications of this meeting and a few other things. We're not going to spam you to death. I guess the next most important thing that we need to talk about is the calendar. We try to keep the calendar up to date, and this is a list of meetings that are coming up and you can go here, you can see next month's meeting and see a little bit about other groups like Western Neuropathy Association and what they're doing. We're in the process of kind of bolstering that. So you can, if you have, let's say your doctor has told you you have a weird form of peripheral neuropathy you never heard about before. Well, Western Neuropathy does a great job of covering rare or not the usual cases with support groups. And so you're able to get on there, find out when they meet and go. And that would be true of a number of other groups around the country and around the world, I guess we'd have to say, because we do, there are several Canadian groups that we follow. The Pat wanted me to call, Facebook. We have a Facebook group, which is called On Your Feet. It basically, it's got about 400 members. We unfortunately, we're a little slim on the crew, so we don't, you know, we're not working it every day, but people do start their own discussions. People come here for answers, things like medications, what are the side effects of such and such. Here's something on just three tips, 3 lifestyle tips that might help you out that don't require you to change everything. For example, that's the latest article up there. And just people are talking over there. Again, free to join and free to get on and off, you know, in case you find out it's not for you. And then we also have a YouTube channel. And that is great because we're trying to post things that you see here. For example, this meeting we're having right now is being recorded. So it'll go on the YouTube. And then 6 months, 9 months from now, you can say, what was that woman's name that made that presentation? And we can, you can go look it up and find out the things that you've needed to know. Let's see, right up here, this is the main YouTube channel right here. This just happens to be mine. It's not particularly about neuropathy, but this is, and here's, if you click on neuropathy videos, then you get a list of the videos that we have published. Most of these are ones we created. Sometimes we'll see a webinar that was particularly good, and we'll go ahead and put that up there. So it's an easy place to find information, educational resources that you may be looking for. I think that's it. Anything else I forgot?
I don't think so. I think you covered the waterfront.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
now we are going to introduce, do we have any new attendees? Any new ones to the group?
You would stop sharing, Judd,
Yes.
and we'll get back to the gallery. There we go.
Any new attendees or someone who's sort of been away for 6 months trying to figure out who to vote for? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Gerald Wallace was new and he has left. And Sean, I'm not sure, are you a new attendee, Sean Ryan?
Would anyone like to be a new attendee? All right, well, if not, we're gonna open up for about a few minutes for closing remarks. Not close, open discussion. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong notes. Is there anyone who would like to discuss a just open discussion? Glenn?
I don't know. What do you want me to say today?
Let's see, would you
Yeah,
tell us about red light? I saw you write an article. What do you think about red light?
That was the New York Times article that Judson was just talking about. There's a link to it there now. It's interesting that the Times wrote about it now because they're writing about it being used for a whole host of ills, not just neurological conditions. But I always tell people that this is a treatment that's been around forever and ever. And in fact, the very first day I found myself 21 and a half plus years ago at the Cornell Weill Center for Peripheral Neuropathy, that very day when I was getting a workup, there was a salesperson there touting the lovely benefits, supposedly, of anodyne red light therapy. So there's been a lot of this around for a long time, going by different names: laser, red light, anodyne. There's probably others I've forgotten at this point. Most of them work on the same mechanism. Supposedly, those wavelengths act on the nitric oxide system in the blood vessels to dilate them so that you get more nutrients and oxygen to nerves and other organs, and more ability for toxins to be taken away. But I guess in the end, if this was something that was a panacea, we'd all know about it. It's very much a your mileage may vary situation. My own sense is it might work better on people whose neuropathies have a strong circulatory or ischemic component. That includes things like diabetic neuropathy, certain of the anti-nuclear antibody autoimmunities. But for a lot of the other things, particularly like, say, the hereditary neuropathies, I don't think that the chances of it improving your condition are any better than 50-50.
That's what I've heard. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. Anybody else with any just open discussion, any problems, any situations, any new things, or what y'all think about Amanda's chat? Was that good? Did y'all learn something?
Definitely.
Raise your hand.
Can you hear my head nodding?
Betty Ann has her hand up.
Go ahead.
Well, I've tried that red light and it doesn't work, and I'm still throwing things against the wall. And
Oh,
wondered if anybody knows about this Sprint PNS system or Alpha Stim.
Brent,
Glenn, I'm going to turn that over
Yeah.
to you. Do you know anything about that?
A couple of the people in some of the WNA groups have mentioned trying to use that too. That's basically another of the mechanisms that are out there that a lot of the treatments tend to underlie, which involves neurostimulation. As far as I can tell, the Alpha Stim is a very elaborate combination of TENS and ultrasound. And again, for certain people, that might be helpful. I'm not sure, though, as I found in my own experience with TENS, it helps with the symptoms while it's on, but once you turn it off, the symptoms tend to return. The real claims that they make there about it helping with nerve regeneration, I certainly haven't seen any clinical paper evidence of that. It's not that nerves can't regenerate under good conditions, they do, but I haven't seen any evidence that those particular type of treatments enhance the process.
Okay, is that both of them or just the Alpha Stim?
The Alpha Stim and related things, even things like the Rebuilder, fall into similar categories, and certain ultrasound TENS combinations that go by different names out there. The problem, unfortunately, in the neuropathy sphere, if you are in the research weeds as much as I am, is that there's really been nothing new under the sun for a long time. A lot of this stuff they're talking about has been around decades in one form or another. The trick, I think, in the end, may be to see what happens with some of the personalized genetic approaches that are only first starting to be used, or things like, say, Win Santor's trials for the drug Perenzepine, which is supposed to enhance nerve regrowth. For those of you who are not familiar with that, you can actually go to their website and read a little bit about it. They're trying to accumulate people both for a stage 3 trial and also people who might want to be involved in them going after a what's the designation? The term is slipping past my head right now. It's basically when you get a designation where people who can't afford treatments can get them if the National Institutes of Health and CDC say they can. Why is my mind not coming up with that? You know what I'm
Needy.
referring to, Pat
Needy.
Judson? Hmm?
Needy. Needy ones. I don't know. I'm just, you need it.
Yeah.
Oh, compassionate usage. There, you have to search
There
that
you
brain for a
go.
while.
See, I was close.
Yeah, you were.
You almost had it, Bill.
But yeah, I mean, that's a designation sometimes you can get out of the Food and Drug Administration for treatments that have passed through stage 2 trials and apparently are not harmful, you know, because they're always testing for that first, but which don't yet have a lot of clinical evidence for them. So, you know, anybody who's interested in that, they're trying to do that for diabetic neuropathy, although I don't think we have too many diabetic neuropathy people online right now here, a few. But it's certainly something that you can talk to them about.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Betty Ann, did that answer your question?
It sounds like basically I've exhausted everything.
Oh, well, like all of us, we keep trying.
Right.
Keep trying. Keep trying.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more. Well, Pat, I think we go to closing remarks and then we'll go into overtime.
All right. Thank you all for your attention and participation today. I hope you benefited from Amanda's presentation and want to thank Mike Foxworth. He put a lot of time into making the arrangements and planning with Amanda for today's presentation. So we appreciate that, Mike, very much. Bill just mentioned overtime, and I'll just quickly say what that is. So if there's someone new here, they aren't familiar with it. We officially end our meeting at 4 o'clock, but we allow for another half hour or so of what we consider more of a social interaction. We call it overtime. It is not recorded so that you can feel comfortable perhaps saying what it is that you might not have wanted to say in the recorded session. So we will be going into overtime at 4 o'clock or a little before that because we're actually ahead of time. Excellent. The next thing I wanted to mention is the annual report. I'm very proud of and very happy to reference this. This took a lot of effort. It is our review that's required by our report that's required as a 501c3 nonprofit. And it is the basis, it was the basis for our annual meeting, which we held on October 31st. Also a requirement of the 501c3. If you are interested, the annual report goes into detail on our accomplishments for the past year and
Oh, hanging in there, Linda. How about you?
And our objectives for 2025. And Judd put the reference in chat as to the where you can find it on
You get all
our
the specifics.
link. All right.
Good.
Betty Ann
Getting
doesn't-
some background.
Yes, Betty Ann doesn't realize that she is, her conversation is coming through. Okay. Anyway, the annual report, it actually leads me to our next point, which is the exit survey. You will see interspersed throughout the annual report comments made by people in our exit surveys, our past exit surveys, about what they are interested in learning more about, what they feel has been positive, what they would like to see in more detail, or topics they're interested in. And there will be an exit survey at the end today. When you close your, when you leave the meeting, you will see an exit survey pop up with, I think, 4 or 5 questions asking for your feedback. It's important to the executive team to know what it is that you find interesting and would like us to pursue for future meetings. One thing that we are looking at is looking at what kind of records and documents you should have on hand for your basically your end of life planning, so that your family and friends are aware of what it is, what your wishes are. And also we're considering another presentation on downsizing, decluttering, and making that decision Do I want to age in place, or is it time for me to be looking for perhaps a continuous care community or other arrangements? So those are two topics that people have asked about that we're considering, and you can answer or give us your thoughts in today's exit survey. I also wanted to reference Bill Wilshire, who leads the Pittsburgh group, pointed out that the October-November Brain and Life magazine, or their website, brainandlife.org, has an article on GLP-1 weight loss drugs. And one of the findings they have identified with the weight loss, these specific weight loss drugs, is that they appear to improve nerve structure and functioning for those with diabetic neuropathy. It was an aside to the main article, but he pointed out you might want to go to Brain and Life and read this article, especially if you have diabetic neuropathy. And in general, you might simply want to subscribe to the magazine. It's free. You can get a print version or a digital version. And Judd, if you will make sure I'm right, I think it's just simply brainandlife.org, and put that in the chat. And the final thing is to remind everyone that it's Fallback Sunday or Saturday. Remember to change your clocks. We actually gain an hour, which people say, oh, we got an extra hour's sleep. Well, you could also see it as an extra hour for movement and exercise, because motion is lotion, and the best thing we can do is to keep moving for our peripheral neuropathy. So thank you for your attention. I'll turn it back to Bill.
Yes, I would like to finish up by saying my famous quotes: motion is lotion, rest is rust. And if you start lifting weights or doing something like that, go slow, go low. And then if you can't get out of your chair, sit and be fit. And instead of saying, I can't, say, I can modify. What do you think?
There you go.
It's great hip hop.
Anyway, okay, it's quarter of, I've got quarter of 4, daylight savings time, and we'll go into overtime, and we'll go to overtime till 4:15. So I declare this meeting go to overtime.
We have officially
Thanks,
closed,
Bill.
stopping the recording so that you can feel comfortable.
And you can say what you want to. Anyway,
And thank you for coming today. And remember, if you haven't joined, go to our website and join to make sure you get future invitations. Oh, I meant to ask Glenn if he had anything additional to add from the Western Neuropathy Association.